So, greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Taylor, and I'm coming back with a report on the condition of the Wayne County Public Schools here in Goldsboro, North Carolina. Within the past week or so, there has been a report card of, the state's grading of schools, which outlines the proficiency of the students in math and reading. And looking at this report card, which has been circulating on social media, the numbers are really, really disturbing. And I just want to take an in-depth look at the numbers by the particular schools. Most importantly, the quote-unquote inner city schools, not the county schools. Now, I'm going to start with the middle school. The middle school, Brogdon Middle School, which is Southern Wayne, has a proficiency of reading of 23.3% and a math of 20.5%. And those scores netted the school a grading of F. And now I'm going to also go to Dillard Middle School. Dillard Middle School is the basic inner city middle school in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And those students have displayed a score of 24.4% in reading and also only 20.7% in math. And also Carver Heights also received a F. That's the other inner city school that I actually volunteer at and participate in the Reading Buddy program at. But those scores are particularly low as well. And it doesn't show it on this screenshot that I have, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, by looking at them, that school received a F as well. I think the reading was right around 20 or 23%, no higher than that, and the math was equally low, right around 20%, which nets both inner city schools a grading of F for their students' proficiency in reading and math, which is once again totally alarming. And I had to ask somebody, what does those numbers actually mean? And what those numbers mean is only 23% of the students in that school, or 24 in regards to Dillard, are proficient in reading, and only 20% are proficient in math. So that means only 1 out of every 5 students are proficient. And then I have to ask myself, or you may have to ask yourself, what is the meaning of proficient? Is proficient a C or 70 in this day and age? In my day in school, a 70 was a D. And I think a 60 now is a D. So is that what they're considering proficient, which is in my day bad? So what are those students who are proficient, what are their grades as well? So, but it's very telling because of these are our future kids that are, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, are not able to proficiently read, which kind of handicaps them in the path of life. Many people may not know this, but the U.S. government and the states actually build prisons based on the test scores of students in the 2nd and 3rd grade. They actually calculate how many beds that they're going to need when these kids get older because of their lack of proficiency in reading and math. Now that gives a whole new clarity to what has been labeled by Michelle, I forgot her last name, but Michelle, the black lady who wrote the book, The New Jim Crow. Once again, the school to prison pipeline is very evident in these numbers. Now, earlier in the year, I did a story about Dillard Middle School Principal Mario Ray. Now, he has been under fire by several citizens and community organizations about his treatment and his administration of the school and his policies and his overall attitude and demeanor towards the students. Many students have came out, many parents have came out after that video and indicated how he berates the children, how he yells at the children, how he pretty much runs the school like a prison itself, which doesn't do the children any good if they're already failing in the basic tenets or the basic tenements of education, which is reading and math. And the basis of that first story started about his treatment of a 12-year-old student who was having a mental episode. She was under duress. I felt like she was being intimidated and threatened by this principal. And the incident, if you want to go back and look at the video, ended up in the 12-year-old child being arrested, charged with assault, and actually suspended for the school year. And now she is attending, if I'm not mistaken, the alternative school. Now, Mr. Ray is still the principal now, and he responded to that video saying how he does a good job and, he's made certain improvements. But as we see by these numbers that were just released about a week ago, 3/4 of the school are failing or not up to task or not up to aptitude in reading and math. So I don't know how this has not been addressed by the Wayne County School Board, or at least Mr. Ray as well. What are they actually doing in the schools to bring forth these kind of scores? Now, I spoke with a teacher who was there during the incident, and that incident happened actually during the last testing day, or one of the last parts of school where students tested. And the teacher detailed the incident, how Mr. Ray was running up the stairs, yelling and causing a scene, which those students on that floor were just about to take a test. Now, mind you, studies have shown, children have to be in the right mindset. They have to eat a good meal. They have to, be in a certain state of mind to do well on these type of tests. Now, the teacher indicated that, and actually several people actually indicated that Mr. Ray's actions that morning, which causing a scene, actually compromise the grades of the test and the scores of the test, the student's ability to perform sufficiently on that test. And I have not received the scores. I don't know what the results of those scores is, but I know personally from test taking, you have to be in the right state of mind. If you just underwent a traumatic event, or someone's calling the police on your fellow student and there's an uproar, there's no way that you can possibly be in the right mind of taking that test. So we have to be concerned about this because these children are going to be our future, and if they're not being educated in the basic foundation of reading and arithmetic, there's no way they're going to be able to succeed in life. And we also have to look at the particular curriculum. I actually was helping my daughter with a project last year, and she was reading The Great Gatsby. Now, my question is, why is the same 14-year-old girl reading the same book that I read 30 years ago, which I got nothing out of? I was very good in school, but learning The Great Gatsby and, reading those things did nothing for me, to expand my mind. Now, also, as I began to look and at the subject of the book, the book was about, some guy who was a gigolo, and actually some murder in there and everything. It's a very, 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 very inappropriate story for me to be reading in regards to children. I recall, books like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, which used the words nigger Jim and, were very racist in their content, but we had to read those books as black students. And so that's one of the reasons why I began to get turned off, because I started to read books outside of school, like the autobiography of Malcolm X and books like They Came Before Columbus. And I really began to see that what we were taught was only being taught from a Eurocentric or European aspect of the world. Like, for instance, all the great scientists, Louis Pasteur and Albert Einstein, all of those guys are white people. The math greats, Isosceles and Pythagorean theorem, all those guys are from Europe. And you had George Washington never told a lie, and Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Everything that I learned was about the greatness of white people. And the only thing that I learned about blacks were we were slaves, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King had a dream, and that was it. And so that curriculum is still being perpetrated to this day, and they will say something like critical race theory as a bad thing, basically teaching children the true history of America, but also not only America, but the true history of themselves, which are African children, the greatness of the Mali kingdom and the Kush kingdom and the Egyptian kingdom and the great astronomers and philosophers and mathematicians that came from that society. We don't learn about those things. We learn that Africa was a jungle, and the Belgium and the Portuguese and everybody came and civilized us, which couldn't be further than the truth. And I didn't even mean to get on that rant, but the education has to appeal to the children that it is being directed to. And this is probably why we see those scores, because dealing with the children, they are very bright, they are very knowledgeable, they have a lot of potential, a lot of ambition. But if you sit a book in front of a child talking about something that they have no interest in and they don't see any interest in, then of course they're not gonna be interested. And if you're not interested, then you're not going to want to perform well doing those things. Now, like somebody said, and all children have different talents and abilities. I remember one analogy stating they had a snake, a bird, a cat, a lion, an elephant, a giraffe, a squirrel, and a few other animals. And they sat those animals in front of a tree. And they said the American school system is like telling each of these animals to climb that tree. Now, of course, the squirrel and the cat is going to do good, but or the lion, but the bird and the giraffe and the elephant and the dogs, they're not going to be good because that's not their specialty. So we have to learn. Education comes from the Latin word educare, which means to bring forth without, or to bring forth within that which the child has. The talents and the gifts that each individual child is born with. So children may not be good at math or reading, but they may be good in art or dance or mechanical stuff or working with their hands. So this entire system is based on a model that is completely outdated, and especially with the technology of today, where you got children making millions of dollars off TikToks and YouTube playing video games. We have to revamp this ancient model that was set forth in the 1800s. But there's no one who wants to speak on these things. It's evident in the grade, and it's not only the inner city schools. There's Eastern Wayne, who has a 31% proficiency in reading and a 28% in math. Their grade is a D. And let's not talk about the high school. The Goldsboro High School has a 19.3 percentage in reading efficiency. Now, of course, the School of Engineering has more, a higher score. But once again, that is an indication of, once again, the focus or the allocation of funds. Now, I looked on the school board's website, and they don't have a breakdown of which schools get what money. But of course, through my research and having an issue with one of my daughter's schools in Norfolk, And they displayed, how much each school gets the resources. The kids the schools that serve the inner city kids get less resources. And the school that serves the most well-to-do kids get the most resources, which is actually backwards. The kids who are less advantaged or up against obstacles, they should receive the most support and the more resources because of their needs. So I hope we pay attention to this issue throughout the year because once again, if our kids are not going to learn, they're going to be pushed out. They're going to be turned off by learning, and then they're going to be going to, I think they call it Dillard Academy, which is none other than an alternative school. And the alternative school is the last step in the process of going to training school, or better yet, kiddie prison. And as I mentioned before, all of the children I knew from sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade went to Dobbs, and what Dobbs was they called it training school, but what I've came to find out that it's nothing but a kid prison. All of the children who left school and got transferred to Dobbs ended up in prison. There's not one person I know that I can think of who went to Dobbs that didn't end up in prison. So what we have here is clear cut evidence of the school to prison pipeline. And I think there has to be a changing of the guards. Most of the people on the school board are not affected. Their children are not affected. They're either going to private schools or charter schools. So their interest is not in regards to these children. I remember I was talking to superintendent about 10 years ago. His name was Dr. McFadden. I don't know his first name, but I remember his son Drew. And we were talking one day when I went to a school board meeting, and he told me, he said, "Look, man, I understand, man. My child Drew, actually graduated from Goldsboro High School, but his dad personally told me he said he told Drew when it came to like 10th or 11th grade, hey, don't you want to go to Wayne Country Day? Don't you want to go where all of the other white children went to?" And he told me, he said, no, Drew said he wanted to stay at Goldsboro High School. And Drew was one of the few students who, few white students who graduated from Goldsboro High School. Now, as I mentioned, I was quote unquote academically gifted. And so I was through second all the way through to 12th grade. I was in what they call the AG classes, or the advanced classes, where a lot of time it was only me and two or three other black students in those classes. Four or five other black students in those classes, and most of the other students was my Caucasian brothers and friends. However, I began to notice 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those children begin to dwindle out of those classes, and they begin to go to schools like Wayne Country Day and other schools because for whatever reason they felt or in that time Goldsboro City Schools started to decline, and they felt that their children would be better off in other school districts. So once again, that is, and I think a few years back they was actually thinking of closing Goldsboro High School because of the lack of scores and probably because of the lack of funding. All of that goes hand in hand. But I say all that to say this: that there's definitely a disadvantage in certain schools, but there's also a changing of the guards that needs to be had in those people in the administrative building, but also in the curriculum making or the curriculum acceptance planning of those students. And I don't fault the teachers, because the teachers only can do and only can work with what the administration gives them to work with. So I applaud every student that puts forth their effort, and I applaud every teacher and everyone who comes to school, not just for a paycheck, but because they love these children dearly and want them to succeed. And I'm glad I saw this report because, as many as you may know, I'm doing an after-school program in one of the housing areas, and I started the program on the basic of this children's book. I don't have it laying around, but the children's book is called The Wisdom of Creation, written by Gregory Robinson, and it gives it gives a lot of jewels of how children can deal with certain obstacles and forego peer pressure and low self-esteem issues and make the right decisions. So I developed an entire curriculum with hopes of getting these children to read and interact with this book. But I realized at the beginning when I presented the book saying, I wanted to start reading, most of these children from the age of 8 to 13 or 14, a lot of them did everything in their power not to read that book. Hey, Mr. Richard, can we watch a movie? Mr. Richard, I got to go to the bathroom. Mr. Richard, is there any snacks? Mr. Richard, can we do something else? Mr. Richard, I can do push-ups. Mr. Richard. So I realize now that it's not that they have a disinterest in reading. It may be because, as evident by these scores, many of them may possibly not be able to read in a manner that they feel comfortable showing or trying or attempting to read these books. So I'm encouraged, but I'm also discouraged because these children are not being given the tools that they can even learn the lessons that I am trying to impart with them, because they're not being educated properly. And I give credit one of the girls there. She stood up and she said, "Okay, look, I'm not a good reader, but I'm going to read." She stood up in front of the group and she read. She did her best, and I commended her. I corrected her when she messed up some words, and some of the words I feel that she should have got. But then looking at these scores, I understand why that she may not be proficient as I was, or some of my peers. So this is affecting us more than we know. All of these kids that I work with are so talented. They're so bright. They can have great conversations. They got great analytical skills. They have so much energy and wanting to know and wanting to learn, but they haven't been taught the basics, the basic tenements of reading and arithmetic. So that's going to handicap them if we don't get a handle on this. If we don't put people in place who are willing to go against the rain or go against the grain or challenge those people who are allowing these things to go on, and they just usher in new principles and new faces. Like I said, I think Carver Heights just got a new principal. So now he's in there. So he's going to, I don't know what he's going to do. But, I've only been working with Carver Heights volunteering for a year. So I don't even know how long that last principal was there. And also her efficiency in, bringing the school up to code, or, up to proficient levels of reading and math. So I just wanted to come and kind of analyze that, because everybody's talking about how our children are failing. But it's one thing, once again, to make a Facebook post, but it's another thing to go down to the school board and go down to the schools and demand that changes be made in order that we can ensure that, the inner city schools, and not only the inner city schools, all of the schools and all the children are being given the proper tools to succeed in life. And like I said, there is a such thing as a school to prison pipeline, and according to these numbers, they're going to be building some more prisons in the North Carolina area very soon. So I thank y'all. If y'all want to call me on this issue, my number is 919-587-7782. I'm just a concerned citizen and one who loves children and want them to have a opportunity of success in life from the very start. Peace and blessings. I'm out. Y'all have a blessed day.